Hi folks, in today's video I'll be showing you how to paint this half-dragon miniature, and this video sponsored by Hero Forge. This is the premium plastic that I've gone ahead and used a spray primer on. Didn't get maybe the most even prime coat, but it will work. And so I'm going to start off by painting the body. I really like all of the new dragon options that Hero Forge recently added, and so I went with this kind of snap turtle dragon looking head and the aquatic tail. And so with that I decided, why not do blue, something that could live in the sea. I kind of saw this character as perhaps a fun like shaman or cleric of the sea, something like that. So I've based it all in that Thousand Suns blue to give it that nice blue color. And now I'm going to go in and add Drakenhof Nightshade just to use this shade to help really bring out the details in the sculpt, especially like on the feet there. You'll see on the tail. And I will say with the base coat of the blue, this was a little patchy, but because of kind of the effects I'm going to be going through, I didn't bother going and doing a second coat of that base coat. But if you want to, just in case, go for it. So now that that has fully dried, always make sure to let your shades fully dry. I'm going back in with Sotek green and stippling this on. I decided to use this stippling method to kind of help bring out add some texture to the miniature. There are these great little scales that are already sculpted into the shoulders, but some of the rest of the body is a little bit smoother, so this just kind of adds a bit of that kind of scale look, even if you don't have scales built into the whole mini. So I've let that dry, and now I'm going back in with Ahriman blue, and I'm stippling this in as well. And I'm really focusing this, kind of using a bit as a highlight, so I'm focusing where the light would be hitting the mini, kind of the idea of like where would the light be bouncing off of those scales and reflecting back that light. So just using this stippling, which is getting a little bit of paint on the brush, wiping off a decent amount, not as much as you might for dry brushing, and then just using a tapping motion. Now I do want to bring out some of the sculpted scales, like with the chest, and to do that I'm bringing Ahriman blue and I'm painting this in with a little bit of a finer detail brush. And I'll do both the scales. I'll focus on the ridges along the ear ridges, frills along the face, and also on the tops of the feet and hands, just adding this highlight. And because these parts are bigger scales essentially, I'm not as worried about covering up that stippling. I kind of purposely want to cover up that stippling to give it that nice big scaly reptilian look to it. And to bring it out even a little bit more, I've mixed Ahriman blue and white together, and now I'm painting that over as a highlight, really focusing on where the light would be hitting. So with these facial ridges, kind of almost doing an edge highlight here, just using a very fine brush to get the very edges of those face details and scales and stuff like that. So while that all is drying, I'm going to start painting in all of the seaweed wraps with Warpstone Glow. I really wanted this fun, bright, vibrant green to the seaweed to kind of bounce off of the blue. This has a lot of cool tones in it, but I'll add in some warmer tones with a lot of the accessories, which I think really makes them pop. So now that I've got that all over, and I did let the Warpstone Glow dry, I'm going to come back in with Creed Camo. This is just to bring out some of the different layers of this seaweed skirt. So I'm focusing on kind of individual pieces of this seaweed to add a little bit of different color. Now, if you don't have contrast paints, you could also do this either by painting in with a different color or by using a shade or an ink. And now I'm going back in with Warpstone Glow just to bring a little bit more dimension to this. So I'm highlighting the raised areas, focusing especially kind of towards the edges and center, bringing it back up to that nice vibrant green, but it does, because I've got that contrast paint down, it does make a difference between the two. And to even bring it up a little bit more, I'm going in with Warpstone Glow and Moot Green mixed together and highlighting the lighter pieces of seaweed, the pieces of seaweed that I didn't paint with the contrast paint. So that's going to bring up that contrast even more. And to really boost this kind of scaled look, I am going through and very gently dotting in with Lothern blue additional kind of dots and scales to really bring up the stippled look. This adds a nice kind of, gives that scaled look. You can also use this in a variety of techniques, skin, leather, stuff like that, to add a little bit more texture to your miniature. I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Hero Forge. Check out Hero Forge to make your fully customizable tabletop miniature with dozens of fantasy races and thousands of parts to choose from. They recently launched color to everyone, and this is a great tool. Not only can you order color miniatures, so if you aren't very skilled at painting, you can still have a color miniature for your table. It's also fantastic if you do want to paint your own miniature, because you can go through and use the color tools to plan out your painting process. They have a whole bunch of kind of pre-made body and clothing colors, and then you can also go in and adjust all of the paint colors individually. So you can play around, figure out exactly what you want your mini to look like before you even put any paint on a palette or a brush. And Hero Forge is constantly expanding the catalog of customization options, adding new parts every week and major features like races and custom posing on a regular basis. So make sure that you're checking in often. And back to the painting. So I have gone ahead and I based in white some parts that I'm just going to use some contrast paints to kind of do a little bit of a shortcut on some of the accessories. But first I wanted to paint these fun barnacles. That's part of the clothing option for this sea look. So I'm basing it in Tallarn sand. I thought that was a nice kind of barnacly look. It bounced off of the blue very well, and I also used the Tallarn sand to paint the sand on the base, and then I just used some contrast paint over the sand on the base to bring out the textures there. I decided to paint up this crystal spell effect with yellow to kind of really make it look a little unexpected. You might think of doing crystal in like a blue or more of a light color, or a kind of bluey white color. So I'm using the contrast Iyanden yellow. I said that wrong. I'm probably said that wrong. To just kind of get in the base color, and I like how it falls into the cracks there. Now I'm going back while that dries to do the barnacles in Agrax Earthshade. Using inks or something like that just really helps bring out, you can suddenly see those little divots in the barnacles. That really already makes it pop out a little bit more, but I will go through and add in a little bit of detail. So with Kislev Flesh, I'm just very gently dotting around the very outside of this barnacle. I got a little bit too much there, so be careful not to get too much paint on your brush when you're doing stuff like this. But by dotting around, it gave it a little bit of that uneven texture that barnacles have, and really kind of brings a little bit more dimension to it, pops them out. So it comes into focus a little bit better right here. I was holding a little bit too high. Yeah, you can definitely see those barnacles start to tape shake, and it also helps differentiate that there are multiple barnacles, not just one giant one, by doing these kind of 3 steps of base coat, shade, and then highlight. All right, now to bring a little bit more dimension to these crystals and make it look a little bit more like crystals, I'm going in with Flash Gitz Yellow to paint kind of the wide flat bits. still letting that contrast stay in the crevices of it. And I did like how the contrast gives it almost a little bit of an orange look. But now I'm just smoothing out, getting a really nice smooth look to the flat portions, the flat raised portions. And now I'm going to go back in with a light yellow and really hit the very tops of it to give it a little bit of a little bit more dimension, a little differentiation. So I'm focusing this on the tops of each of these crystal shards. And you could just stick with that and then go to white, but I decided to actually do another step in here of light yellow and white to get a little bit more dimension. And you can see this is really bringing a lot of shape to this. And to make kind of the final bit, I'm using dead white and really focusing on the tips. And that's something, a lot of you look at crystals, stuff like that, the edges catch the light. So coming in with a white or very, very light version of the color that you painted the main one in is really going to make it look kind of almost that reflective, catching the light. The last little bit is just going through and painting in these seashells. I decided to do them pink, so why not? So I'm painting it in with Emperor's Child. Just this fun, nice, bright pink. There's a lot of color to this. This was a really vibrant miniature, a little bit of a stretch for me. I usually don't paint quite as vibrant of colors, but it's fun to, go a little bit out of your comfort zone, not contrast zone, comfort zone. And that's kind of what I did with this miniature. I leaned into those bright, saturated colors. And I'm using Carroburg Crimson, so a red, nice shade color to bring a little bit of dimension to this. I got a little bit too much on there, so I just wiped off the brush and soaked it up. And now I'm going through, I mixed Emperor's Children and white together to paint in the highlights. And I'm using a really nice fine detail brush just so I can get these little tiny details. And here is the finished miniature. I can totally see this dragon, half dragon, being a really fun like water cleric, something like that, or maybe he's a fun NPC for your adventurers to run into. Where do you see this guy appearing in your game? What can you think of the backstory for this? I'd love to know in the comments below. Don't forget to go over and check out heroforge.com to make your customized miniature today. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and give it a like if you did. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative. Bye!